Hello, everybody. My name is Penguin, and this is going to be a slightly different episode of the Cantankerous Cabaret. This one, I was not drinking, and I actually have a guest with me in this one. It's a bit. Yeah. It's something we've been trying to put together for a while now, and it finally happened. So, I hope you guys enjoy this special episode of the podcast, and I will see you guys next time. All right, we are recording.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
So,
oh, wait.
what?
Right. Start recording. Oh, and I just ate a chip. Oh, why did I do it? Oh, why? I wrecked,
It's alright, I'm trying to keep it chill anyway, I don't give a shit.
I wrecked the whole thing. Oh, no.
It's all your fault, Burp, god
I
damn it!
messed it all up. Uh,
uh, anyway, for I guess those that might not know you, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm To the Ranting Gryphon. Most people know me as. Or just Two Griffin. Some people call me Two. Other people call me Birdface. So, but yeah, professionally, I performed as To the Ranting Gryphon for quite a long time.
All right, and I got a list of things to talk about during this,
Sure.
and the main reason I wanted to talk to you about all this is because you were essentially, in a lot of ways, I guess, canceled from the furry fandom.
Oh, hey. I'm kind of taking a little bit of pride in that since I think I was pretty much the first to get canceled. I
Yeah,
mean, I was kind of like the first one to get canceled, like what, 4 or 5 years ago or something.
something
So
like that.
yeah, I was I was one of their test people. That's like, hey, let's cancel him and see if it works.
That's kind of what
Uh,
it seems like at this point.
well, when I think about it, and now that cancel culture is, I mean, everybody knows what it is. Everybody has been in some way canceled or, in some way or another. It's kind of a common thing at this point. And at
Unfortunately.
first, I had this crazy idea at first when I got canceled because it didn't make sense. It just, they, it's like they wanted me gone suddenly, even though they'd never acted like that before. And they're like, okay, well, we want him gone, but we don't really have a reason to make him gone. So, um, racist, Nazi, transphobic, homophobic, all these names, and I'm like, what? And then they canceled me, and I eventually, and I guess you could say I've had a little bit more time to think about it than some people have. I've realized that what they were really doing, and this was the kind of these were the thoughts that I was having at first that I thought were a little crazy, but it turns out they're probably true.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they were trying to send a message to everyone because back then in the fandom, I was probably known as the most free thinking performer out there. I'd have opinions, I'd express them. Sometimes they were popular, sometimes they weren't, but I thought for myself on my own. And I had this crazy thought that, this almost seems like they're trying to tell everybody that if you're a free thinker too, if you think your own thoughts and aren't going to go with our opinions, then we'll cancel you because we canceled him. We did it to him, so we'll do it to you too. And
That is always kind of what it felt
the
like.
more I look at cancel culture as it goes on, the more I'm seeing that's exactly what they're doing. I mean,
Pretty much.
they're canceling people just to send them a message of if you have your own thoughts, if you're not going to think with the sheep, then we will cancel you. And so they pick the biggest people they can find to cancel and just to show everybody else that they'll do it. And at that time, cancel culture wasn't, I don't think it really hit major society yet, but
It was.
it started to hit like small sub communities.
Yeah, at the time it
And
was mostly just like focused on
yeah,
internet communities
yeah,
and little subcultures like that weren't very mainstream.
yeah, exactly. Well,
Uh,
it hit furry fandom pretty quick, and I was the first one they did it to. They're like, okay, cancel that guy.
the
And
only big name I can think of that had been canceled before that was Roseanne Barr over
uh
that whole racism thing when she was on Barbiturates.
yeah, oh wait, yeah, well that was Roseanne Barr. Well, wait.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was after me, wasn't it? I can't remember.
It was around the same time. I don't really
Okay.
remember, but
Yeah,
nah.
yeah, it just it was so confusing because I mean, I'd spent my time professionally being a good, a good worker, as they would say. I always showed up to the venue. I always showed up on time. Um, I did some performances even when I had the flu, so just to make sure I got the work done. I was always
Yeah.
good. I didn't ask for much. I was really, I was really nice to work with, and they'd be like, "What do you need?" I'd be like, "Well, give me a chair and a microphone, and that. I'm good." Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And after like nearly 20 years of doing that, all the conventions just turned around and said, "No, we don't want you here anymore." I'm like, "What? Whoa, why?" Well, racist and Nazi and this and that, and it's like, what? I was totally confused. It like took me. This was not a thing that I sat there for a week going, "Wait a minute, I don't get it." I was doing that for a couple of years. I was sitting there going, "Why? How? What?" I had no idea what happened. Um,
Honestly, I still don't.
I'm getting a little bit more and more sure of it now. It was just an early wave of extremist cancel culture that had hit, a sub community that I happen to be in,
Mm-hmm.
and they canceled me. I think back when nobody even really knew what cancel culture even was. I mean, this was back when even the cancel culture would not admit that there was a cancel culture, even though they were canceling people.
They
Which
still don't.
I know that was weird. It's just the weirdest thing in the world. It's like,
They fucking gaslight people about it all the fucking time.
yeah, it is the strangest thing
And then
that
when they end up getting canceled, they bitch about it on Twitter, and it's just like,
yeah, they don't seem to understand. Yeah, you've been doing that. That's what you've been doing to people. Don't you understand?
just like insert the
Um,
Nelson laugh from The Simpsons.
I don't know. It just seems, and this may be an extreme theory here. I don't know if this is true or not, but it almost seems as though they honestly believe that they are the only person that actually exists in the world. It almost like they don't think that anybody else is really real. They're just like a video game. No, I mean, most people do have contact with a lot of other people online anymore, so, it could happen. And that if they cancel their jobs, well, that doesn't count because they're just a part of the simulation. But if my job gets canceled, oh, that's different because it's me. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It is such a weird thing.
I mean, with the way 2020 fucked everybody up, it wouldn't surprise me if there are people that believe that.
Oh boy.
And I mean, like,
Uh,
fears of living in a simulation aside, that's existential bullshit. That's a different talk.
yeah, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well,
Hmm.
it's so weird, this entire phenomenon, let's call it. Because, like, the it's like social censorship.
In a way, yeah.
Because the way I always saw censorship, that was like when, like, the authority does it. Like when the company or some or the government or something like that says no and chopping block. This is like the social version of that, and it's very very. Uh, insert the me struggling with my words. uh,
Well, one thing that I think is, I guess, a little bit poignant about all this, and it wouldn't be so bad because there have been people who've, for years, long time, like, decade at least, who would cry and whine about the smallest little thing. They get offended over really nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd complain and they'd yell about it. And people would just go, learn to manage your feelings, get over it. It's okay. You'll be fine. Well, that was fine until suddenly, for some reason, this is the part I don't get. It started being accepted commercially. I mean, you could start if you were canceled, if people like got outraged at you for any reason, they'd collect together, get more people who were outraged with you, and then commerce would get outraged with you. It's like you would like lose accounts. You could lose
Yeah.
right now. Right now, you can lose your bank account if they decide that you're not woke enough. And it's just like, and you can lose things like jobs and venues and places that
Mm-hmm.
you like me, like I performed. They will turn around and go, oh, well, we better cancel them. It's like, but why? And I've had this talk with people before. As I said, look, all those people that are out there yelling about me, that are complaining about me, calling me a Nazi, none of them have ever been to your con. They have never been to my show. They were never going to go to my show. And yet you're throwing me out because they're complaining about me. It's not going to save you anything. I mean, you're not going to get anybody in there because I'm not there anymore.
Yeah,
And
the people
they
just
don't,
they disappear out of the fucking woodwork like this, like fucking
yeah,
termites.
yeah. And I mean, and as I don't know if anybody noticed, but the first convention that canceled me, that actually stopped me from performing, was
Anthrocon, right?
Anthrocon, and
What
he
used to be the number one con in the U.S.
well, they had this idea that well, people are wanting him blocked, so we better block him. And I told him, I said, look, you're gonna lose people because none of those people who are griping about me, none of those go to your con. They never went to my shows. And you're just going to lose more people because the people that do want to see me there are now not going to show up anymore, and you're going to lose them too. And they're like, blah, 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 you're canceled. And their convention went from, and I think they were the largest furry convention in the world for probably about at least a decade.
Was it
And
the
then
world?
yeah, it was the world.
Oh, I thought it was
And
just the U.S.
no, it was the world.
Hmm.
And then that single year, that they canceled me and blocked me, they went from the first to the third largest convention. And I told them that was going to happen, but they didn't believe me. And I mean, there's a saying that goes along with this. I hear it more and more because it seems to apply more and more. And that's get woke, go broke. Because that's happening to a lot of people.
Really does seem to be happening to a lot of people. But the thing is, one thing I've noticed about cancel culture is that unless it is given power, it it's pointless because another big name that people tried to cancel was Ricky Gervais. And
Yeah.
he's still just doing his thing because he just told them to get fucked. And it rendered them utterly impotent.
Well, and that's basically what you have to. That's what you have to do. I mean, when you get canceled, if you get canceled, I hope you don't. Well, I kind of, in a way, hope you do. But because, well, if you don't get canceled, that means that you're somehow still in that group, and I really don't want anybody to be in that group. They're terrible. But if you do get canceled, the best thing to do is to have your own means of making entertainment or doing whatever you do,
Hmm.
and just sticking with it and just giving the finger to everybody else and just continue to do what you do.
One of the
That's really
biggest
the only way.
I've noticed that one of the biggest mistakes you can actually make with these kinds of situations is making the apologies that they want you to make, because unless it's actually like a justified thing that
Yeah.
you would be apologizing for, that you look back and you're like, "Oh, okay, that was kind of fucked up." Like it's never going to be enough.
No. No,
Like
and
these people are
well,
fucking vultures.
and what they want, well, they asked for this a lot. They asked for an apology. Well, he's doing this and he won't even apologize. It's like, well, first of all, I wasn't doing that. And second of all, when when they ask for an apology, they use the word apology. But what they're asking for is that you ask for absolution. They're asking,
Repentance.
yeah, they're asking for you to repent. And it's basically like, going back to the old witch days. I mean, they're called progressives, but they're really regressives because
Mm-hmm.
it's sending you back to the days where if you admit you're a witch, they'll kill you. If they don't, then they'll kill you anyway.
Pretty
Because that's what
much.
they want you to admit to being a racist. And if you admit to it, then they'll go, see, he's guilty. We told you he's guilty. But if you don't admit, then they'll just be pissed at you that you never apologized. So there's just no reason to interact with them for any reason, you
Yeah. Fucking itchies.
know?
The issues with facial hair. Fuck.
Yeah.
So. Ugh.
Oh, ow.
I
What that
am
noise?
having a major brain blank moment. I'm sorry.
Well, it's okay. It's because, well, I find that when that happens to me, it's because I'm not chilled out enough. I'm a little bit worked up, and I'm trying too hard to think.
Yeah, kind of. It's just I'm looking at the list and we've technically already covered all the things on it.
Uh, well, we can always go from there.
Yeah.
One
So,
thing,
go
well,
ahead.
one thing I've noticed, and this is just something, and I don't know. I mean, I kind of get an idea where this comes from, but I'm not sure. And in that, it seems like a lot of this culture, especially the cancel culture, the the the, the point of focus of it is to get rid of bad things. Well, I mean, of course,
Yeah.
what's bad depends on who you are, but there seems to be this idea, and I don't get this part. Maybe people are. I'm an old guy, so maybe their brains have changed over the time I've been alive. But if I walk down the street and there's some guy and he's standing on a street corner and he's handing out flyers and telling people that they should say, for instance, they should hate Jews. They should just hate them. Well, now I don't know about anybody else, but I'm going to look at the guy and I'm going to think, no, I'm not going to hate Jews. And I'm going to go a different way. Now, what it seems like people think now is that people are so dumb and so brainwashed that they could just walk up to anybody who's saying anything. And if they're saying it, they'll instantly believe it, no matter what it is. And this kind of makes me wonder if that's what they're doing. I mean, if they have so little control over their minds and their emotions that if they walk up to somebody and like hear them saying something, if they'll instantly believe it. And so they're worried that everybody else will do that. That kind of makes me worried that, there's some kind of, large scale brain damage going on in the world right now. Because that just, that indicates you have total lack of control of your own mind, your own thoughts, your own emotions,
Mm-hmm.
and that you don't want anybody out there saying anything that you think could be bad because they'll suddenly be brainwashed and believe you if they don't already believe it. I don't know. That may have come from this idea that people now are, they're born. By the time they're 4 or 5, they're going to school. They go through school, then they go to high school, then they get out of high school, then they go to college, and now college is turned into a daycare center at this point. Safe spaces, and
Mm-hmm. That's
blocking people there. So people get out of college. They're what, 24, 25 years old, and they've basically been in a daycare center their entire lives. So they're gonna have a mentality of what, like a 6-year-old kid. So I don't know. Maybe that's what's happened to people. I have no idea.
I
Uh,
understand as much as the next guy that it is honestly a lot easier to follow someone else's lead than go off and form your own opinions. Like that's just how the brain works.
sometimes, but I mean,
I mean, like
it.
in most cases, at least.
Well, it does. I would think have to have something to do with, like, for instance, I never used to listen to people like, oh, let's say Ben Shapiro. I never listened to that guy before, and I understand he's actually a moderate conservative, even though there's people out there that point at him and call him a Nazi and all this stuff. Even though he repeats this, he was like the most hated person by by racists a few years ago more than anyone else. But no,
I,
it's like I didn't like fall in with everything he said, but I did notice that he was saying quite a few things that I already agreed with. So I started listening to him more. I can't imagine a person coming along and listening to somebody they totally disagree with, and then just suddenly flipping over and believing them and just agreeing with them. I I don't know how that could happen.
yeah, that's just not how it works.
It shouldn't be how it works. I hope that's not how it works.
Yeah, like I was brought up that I should always hear both sides of an argument. I should listen and form my own opinions from that. It's why I've always been a centrist. I've always been a moderate.
Yeah,
Like that's just how I am. But then you have like this very polar nature in almost everything these days. It's either you're with us or you're against us in so many things. There's almost no middle ground anymore. Like I have been like I wouldn't say attacked, but I've had people try and go after me because I entertained the notion of hearing out the other side in a debate.
you questioned. Yeah. Well,
Well,
I have
it's
to
not even
wonder.
that I questioned it. I just wanted to like hear the other side of the argument. I was
Well, I
entirely willing to accept what I had heard from the one side, but then I like added the other person. It was on Twitter, so no surprise that it went to shit
well,
rapidly. But
ah.
still, like
Well,
that.
I have to wonder myself. I mean, and I people don't want to think it's this simple. They want to like throw in some more complex emotional problems with this, but I just have to think all the time. I wonder if all this is just because since most of these people, the extremists especially, if you listen to them, if most of them were not actually emotionally raised past the age of 6, is this just a bunch of adults now just saying, well, we want it our way. We don't care what you want. Everything you want is wrong because we want it like we want it. And if you try to want it a different way, then we will cancel you. I mean,
Wouldn't surprise me.
I wonder if it's just that simple. You know, uh, it it just makes me because anymore. I mean, if you just question, if you even just question their ideas, I've known people who've come to me and they message me and they say, "Oh, I got kicked out of my group," and I'm like, "Okay, why?" And they said because they were in the group and they just asked a question about something. They're like, "Okay, well, question about something like transgenders or question about racists or question about something." They didn't go along exactly with the thought
Mm-hmm.
process and they questioned it, so they were instantly kicked out.
Yeah,
Um,
unfortunately, pretty common these days.
yeah. Well, I mean, I know how it's all going to end. I mean, it's kind of obvious at this point. This is a snake that's eating its own tail, really.
Yep.
They're pretty much going to kick everyone out until there's like 5 people left, and then nobody's going to get along with them because they're tiny. They're just going to eat themselves. They already, in fact, over 2020 mainly, and now 2021, they're very much eating themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm starting to see, and I don't know if this is a good sign of hope or not, but I mean, I'm starting to see less and less of these outraged, SJW types pounding and screaming about anything anymore. There's less and less of them now. I mean, they're either going off and hiding by themselves and not saying much to anyone, or there's just a lot less of them than there used to be. And probably that's because they kicked themselves out, you know? So I'm I'm
The
just
way
wondering how
I
long it's going to take.
always the way I always envisioned this whole sort of thing starting was was honestly because of the internet. Because previously, like believe it or not, I actually do remember a time before the internet was largely a thing.
Yeah.
And I remember like when all you would have was like chat rooms and things like that. Like back then, and even and before this, it was very easy to ignore the people who are now screaming and pounding their fists on Twitter, because then like they didn't have as much of like a platform or a soapbox to stand on as they do now with the age of social media.
Yeah.
And now you have this entirely new, well, at this point, relatively new, still finding its footing in the world. But you have this new, entirely new realm where everyone has an equal voice. And these people who were previously ignored have essentially been given a megaphone to scream into.
Yeah.
And now I think it kind of ties back into what you were saying, that they kind of screamed themselves hoarse and are just kind of retreating back into their little, like, under their gremlin bridges.
Well, yeah, and I think this is a mistake, and I don't blame anyone particularly because it's a mistake that nobody could have ever seen coming because we've never had. I mean, humanity has never had anything like the internet until now.
Oh yeah, no one
And
could have seen this coming.
no, before what would have happened, I mean, it would have been pretty easy. Is like you got a group of people, they're hanging out, they're being, friends and they're chilling, and then somebody comes in and says something like completely apeshit stupid. Like, well, we gotta, like the most recent thing. They're telling doctors and nurses they can't use the words, they can't use breastfeeding
Oh god,
and
I
breast
saw that
milk
on
anymore.
Twitter. It's
Yeah, they have
like,
to use chest feeding and human milk. And see, if somebody come over to a group of friends back then and said that, well, that group of friends wouldn't have talked to them anymore. They would have moved off somewhere else and they wouldn't have included them anymore. And that person would have been like, okay, that was a dumb thing to say. I screwed up and I shouldn't be that nuts anymore. But they don't do that right now because no matter who you are and no matter how whacked out your point of view is, you can find a group of people that will accept it.
yeah,
And that's what they do. They go and find a group of people that accept these, sometimes they're nutty ideas, crazy notions, extremist stuff, and you find them, and now you've got your little echo chamber. Everybody
mm-hmm.
in there agrees, and they start quickly, if you'll notice, and I'm sure you have, they'll start quickly thinking the entire world is wrong and they're right.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been immersed in the internet culture for pretty much more than
All of it.
half more than half my life. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I started like very early playing things like Counter-Strike Classic and Unreal Tournament, like the old, like, just after Quake 3 shooters.
Oh, wow, nice.
Quake 3 is still really fucking fun, by the way.
It is.
Quake
It
3
is, by
Arena
the way.
still has a really active like server list too.
Yeah, I mean, Quake 3 Arena is one of those games that it's got the timing and that last level where you're like jumping between those little
Mhm.
platforms in space and oh man, this
Oh
is
yeah. It
one of the
doesn't even
best
matter
games
that the
ever.
career mode's fights aren't that hard. The maps are just great.
Yeah, the maps are amazing. That was just an awesome. I got so good at that game for a while. I was able
Yeah.
to. One of my favorite things was, and by the way, mind you, I was playing this on what they call a trackpad back then.
Oh
Back when
Jesus.
those were more, yeah, those were a lot more popular. I would play the thing on a trackpad, and I would take the cannon and I would alt fire it to where that big thunk came out, and I could like snipe people with that thing. I could just hit them right in the
Shit.
face. Um, some people even told me, and I actually got to see this once, that when the thing comes right at your face, like when it hits you right in the noggin, the last thing you see, apparently they rendered this on there, there's a big smiley face on one side of it. The side that's you hardly ever see it because you usually get splash damage from it. It hits you near you, but if it hits you right in the face, they tell. And I saw it. I did see it once. There's a big, huge smiley face on it. That's the last thing you see. Oh,
Oh wow, that is goddamn amazing.
oh! Now I'm wanting. Okay, I'm now I'm gonna look up and see if there's actually a picture of this while I'm talking to you.
If you find it, send it to me so I can edit it in.
Okay.
But oh Jesus. But yeah, I've always been immersed in the internet culture. I've always been like playing games where you always see the real whack jobs. Like
Oh yeah.
MMOs especially had a lot of nutter butter people.
Yeah.
I
Um.
remember playing Dark Age of Camelot back when that was live and meeting a very, very interesting array of people while just doing dungeons and standing around in Camelot.
Well,
And
it's.
go ahead.
uh. No. Go ahead. Go on.
I was just gonna say that it really, I guess you could say, oh, excuse me. I guess you could say it opened my eyes very early on as to the variety of people that there are in the world.
Yeah.
Because I would see a literal KKK member one day openly talking about it, and the next I would be talking to someone while we were just running through a dungeon and just like experience farming or trying to get a certain rare material for crafting, and we would just be talking about things uh, like religion. I talked to, I think it was I'm pretty sure I talked to a Hindu person at one point about their belief system and stuff like that. I don't remember a lot about it because it was like over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's crazy the amount of different people that these games attract. And
Yeah.
and since a lot of these games are focused on group play, like dungeons and stuff like that, anyone who's played an MMO can tell you that people often tend to group up and work together in dungeons and get to know each other's playstyle really well to make it as smooth as a experience as possible.
Yeah.
Like, and you can encounter so many different kinds of groups of people when you're looking for a guild to just sort of settle into. It's a very interesting process, and you never really know what you're gonna come across.
No, that's true. Well, I mean, I've come across, for instance, furry groups.
Oh
Now,
yeah,
I mean, now if you just wandered into video games and you had no idea what you were doing and you were wandering around and you stumbled onto a furry group, that would probably you'd probably be so freaked out by the fact that there is such a group. Just by it getting introduced to a group like that.
something like that actually kind of happened to me in my early days of playing WoW.
Uh oh.
I was mostly a horde player, but I had decided to play on the Alliance. The Alliance have the Worgans, aka
Okay.
werewolves.
Yeah.
And I accidentally stumbled into a guild of furries. I didn't know what furry was at the time because I was 14.
Oh yeah. That's where a lot of people stumble into the furry fandom. Honestly.
I didn't properly find my way into furry until I was like 19, living alone and incredibly depressed.
Well, actually, the funny thing is that you were talking a minute ago about getting both sides of the story all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I that's actually how I found furries. I found them early days of internet, right? When it was just there were just a few services and you'd sign up on them and they'd always have a contained sort of thing where you could look at the news and you could look at the weather and you could chat with people that were on the same system. And
I remember you made a video about this a while ago.
yeah, and well, one at one point they opened up everything. They opened up an internet thing,
Yeah.
and so people started getting on the internet. So I found this group that was dedicated. It was an alt horror group on Usenet, and they were dedicated to werewolves and werish type of things.
Mhm.
And they were a very religious group. They a spiritual group.
Yeah.
They a lot of them believed in this kind of thing, and they believed in But anytime a furry would come in, they'd always call him a furry and they'd kick him out. And they're like, "Boot, oh, why? Oh, it was a furry. We don't want the furries around here." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I saw that happen for a few months. And then finally I went, "What? Okay, what is this furry thing? What is this? I need to find out what this is because I want to know why they keep kicking him out." So I found a place called Furry Muck. This is the largest furry, I guess, hangout at that time. And I went in there and I started talking to people. And I I made loads of friends just that first day, just hanging out with them and chilling out. And I was kind of refreshed that they weren't so spiritual about it. It was more like they were just doing it for fun
Mm-hmm.
and chilling out. And I thought that was, more relaxed. And so I thought, well, okay. And I just started hanging out with the furries from then on.
That's kind of the story of how I find it, but replace those early internet things with Second Life.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember
I
Second
was
Life.
shopping around looking for an avatar at the time. I just made this account, and the only things I had were things you can get for free. And
Yeah.
I had finally put some money into it. I had some money in my pocket in World, and I was like, okay, this looks cool. And I was just scrolling through the marketplace. I remember the actual brand as well because it's actually a brand that I believe is still around. It was Dark
It was
Spot
probably Luskwood.
Designs.
Oh, Dark Spot. I thought you were talking about you found Luskwood.
No, but I did go to that shop very early on. Well, I went to Furry Fashion and
Yeah.
I got a Dark Spot Designs avatar. It was the wolf one, the red and black wolf, because
Huh.
I'm an edgelord. But and then I actually had that. And then I started. My main hangout for a while was a group of bloodlines, vampires, and werewolves. Uh,
Wow.
do you know what bloodlines is?
That sounds familiar.
It's one of those. It's a vampire role playing game. You can role play having a clan or a pack,
Oh,
yada
okay.
yada.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was one of
Gotcha.
those. It was run through a HUD. You had to feed, or you had to invest like 40,000 linden in a thing that rendered your curse like impotent. You wouldn't lose your lumen or blood.
Ah,
It was
gotcha.
just it was a money sink that I couldn't keep up with, and I ended up falling out with that clan because of a load of drama. But that's actually how I met my girlfriend that I'm still with, like 6 years later.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. But
Oh, yeah. Well,
hmm?
I was gonna say it's just I don't know. Social media. It's funny because if you get away from social media, well, used to be. If you get away from social media, you hardly ever saw this anymore. You hardly ever saw the outrage and the pointing and the accusations, and you'd never see it if you just got away from social media. But now, because it's become commercialized, and not only has it become commercialized, it's gone right to our government now.
Yep.
I mean, we've got people in the government that are trying to make laws that are based around this. So it's impossible to get away with this anymore. And honestly, the only thing that I can think of to do about it is just to give them a big middle finger and say, no, I'm not going to accept this. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
not going to. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to do it. And I don't know. I think that's going to happen. I think that will happen with most of society.
Yeah.
Wi- once once they're pushed to a point, once we get to a point where the government or a company or something says, okay, we're going to do this. They're going to reach a point where people are going to say, no, that's it. That's the line. We're not going here.
This
Um,
just reminds me of a story that pisses me off. Have you heard of a YouTuber called Jenna Marbles?
I've heard the name before.
She was pretty much known for making goofy songs every now and then. She made videos with her dogs and her bodybuilder boyfriend, Julian. And in one of her songs from like literal years ago, she said something like ching chang chong or something like that in it because it rhymed and she's a goofball. Like, this chick was one of the most wholesome YouTubers out there because all she really, most of her content was just making videos about her dogs and like tying like a bunch of balloons to her chihuahua and letting the thing float around her house.
That
Like, and because she said like ching ching chong or whatever it was in a music video years ago, people went after her so hard she deleted her entire channel and had to go to therapy by how savagely these people came after her.
yeah.
Like, what in the. Who the fuck do these people think they are? Like,
Well, just recently, and I don't know
mm,
if you heard about this. Just recently, it was a guy, and he had a Twitter account, and he had his. Now, mind you, his Twitter account was not very friendly. He was a a troll. He was a shit poster, and that's everybody knew him as that. And he'd post jokes here and there. Not all of them were very friendly. But during the 2016 election, um, he posted on his Twitter. He said, "Hey, all you Democrats, go out there and vote on Thursday." Well, voting actually happened on Wednesday, and he was telling people, "Hey, go vote on Thursday, Democrats." And
it's
as
actually kind
old
of
as
a good one.
it is, but as old as that is, recently they, I guess, dug back in his past. They found that from, I think, 2015. The guy is now in federal prison. They threw him in prison for making that joke.
Jesus
He's got
fucking
he
Christ.
got a 10-year sentence in federal prison for doing that.
I've not heard this one.
Yeah, well, liberal media's not going to talk about it. So yeah, it's yes, they're starting to throw people in prison for, not being woke now, for making jokes. So it's
Well,
getting kind of
considering
interesting
the
out there.
whole election fraud train, I'm not surprised that kind of thing got targeted.
Well, I just think it's funny that they the election fraud, of course, you can't say that. I mean, you can't say it now. If you Google an Apple, no, you can't say that the election was fake. You can't say that, or else they'll take it off. They'll shut down your account. Even though in 2016, I think they spent the next 6 months. The Democrats spent the next 6 months talking about how that election was fake, and about
Mm-hmm.
how Trump was a Russian spy for, and it's like, really? Okay, they can get away with it, and that's what it comes down to a lot anymore.
They
I
spent
think
the
that
better part of
frustrates.
that entire year riding that train.
I think that, well, it's something that I think frustrates me as a centrist. I know it frustrates conservatives, probably more than anything, is that they have this rules for thee, but not for me. It's like, you can't do this. Now, it's okay when I do it, but you can't do it. If you do it, then we'll get your job taken away. We'll get your friends will go away. You won't be able to do anything anymore. But if I do it, it's just fine. Why are you blaming me for doing
It's
something
all
wrong? It's okay if I do it.
it's all fucking hypocritical as hell.
It is very much,
It's like
very much so.
that's not how this works. Thanks.
Yeah.
Fucking you can take that opinion, wrap it up into a nice little ball, shove it right up your rectum.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's close to what I was gonna say. Wrap it up into a little ball and then stick it in like a sack and then put it in a box and mail it to yourself, almost like Amazon does in like several little boxes, and then unpack it, open it, and take a big dump in it. That's what I was gonna.
uh, I
Oh.
don't think that many steps ahead, but kudos for that one. That got me. Hmm.
Oh man. Oh. Well, let me ask you this.
Hmm.
Um, how are you on time here? How much have we done?
Let me look. Uh, we've been going for about 43 minutes. I think that's enough
43
if
minutes.
you want to call it.
Well, I was going to try to get to my recording session about 2 a.m., which is about 10 minutes till that here.
All right.
But it's up to you because I know you're probably going to have. I mean, if you're going to do an hour show, You're
Oh,
probably going to say
I
other
don't
things.
really keep a strict
Oh,
thing on time. I'm not that big. I'm not that miffed about it.
I got you. I got you. Okay.
I appreciate it though, and thank you for coming and talking to me here. Like it's been great, and I hope we can have more chats like this in the future. Honestly.
Sure. Let's talk about that. I'd love to come back sometime.
All right, for sure. And